So what do we think of Mitch Trubisky now? Or Mitchell Trubisky, Mitch Trubisky, whatever you want to call him. So Chicago, when they moved up one spot in the draft in Philadelphia, everybody thought they were nuts. They gave up a third rounder, a fourth rounder, and a third rounder next year just to move up one spot for Mitchell Trubisky. They said this draft class was terrible. It's six. There was no first round guy. But the first three preseason games, Mitchell Trubisky's shown a little something. And that's what we're going to talk about in this preview. This isn't a Chicago Bears preview. This is a Mitchell Trubisky preview. So the Mitchell Trubisky report starts right now.
Yeah, welcome to the Bears Talk. And really, the Bears Talk really revolves around Mitchell Trubisky here. I mean, look, he's been nothing short of impressive in the first preseason games. And honestly, when you look at it, yeah, the Bears traded up, and all reports initially were, the Niners were trying to make him, bid with other teams. It sounds like the Bears were the only ones who bought that. And John Lynch won the poker match of his first NFL draft there with the Bears paying up big. And then the Niners said, yeah, we're just going to fold and take our draft pick anyway. But, I mean, look, he's looked pretty damn good so far. It's preseason football, so it's nothing to say, hey, he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. But he's looked nothing but good and so far.
Yeah, I mean, well, the argument at the time was, well, you could have just waited and called their bluff. Or you could wait until next year where it's going to be a talent-laden NFL draft class at quarterback. I mean, you've got Josh Allen, Josh Rosen, Lamar Jackson, Sam Darnold. You can just keep going down and down. So for the Bears to do what they did, it was very, very surprising. Looking at it now, hey, we still got a long way to go. All right? Because let's remember here, these preseason games, he's playing like mid-third quarter. He's not playing in the first half. He's playing second and third stringers. But I am encouraged for a couple reasons. The way he can throw on the move is incredible. I'm not comparing him to Joe Montana, but Joe Montana, that's what he did really, really well, was throw on the move. And when I see him bootleg, not that he's Joe Montana, it reminds me of it. I can't think of too many quarterbacks that can throw on the move as good as him right now already, except Rodgers and Russell Wilson.
I think Russell Wilson, Ryan Tannehill, those are some guys that really move well and throw the ball on the run. Trubisky's looked well and looked pretty good at this. Now, here's the thing. I wasn't shocked by the trade. And let me explain to you why. The guy who makes the decision, his ass is on the hot seat. Okay? So when you look at in the GM, excuse me, when you look at the GM situation there in Chicago, Ryan Pace's ass is on the hot seat. Okay?
Yeah.
Realistically, for him, let's say, for example, they drafted Solomon Thomas. Okay? And inevitably, the Bears end up going, let's say, 4-12. I have them going 3-13 this year, but let's say they go 4-12. You know what still happens to Ryan Pace? He gets fired. Okay? So the reason why this didn't surprise me, this pick didn't surprise me, guys, is because typically GMs who draft a quarterback usually are given one more year of leniency in their job to keep it. And that also happens with head coaches. And Coach Fox, also on the hot seat. So to me, the Bears, you have to understand, guys, when the Bears trade these picks, it's not like it's the owner saying, okay, well, I'm going to make these decisions, aside from Dallas, okay? Here in Chicago, the guys who probably were the loudest two voices in the room were the two guys who said, look, we got to do something or we're going to be fired in 6 months, okay? So to me, it didn't surprise me. These are the teams that realistically, they get taken advantage of. Several years ago, that's what happened to Blake Bortles. He got drafted early and with a GM whose ass was on the hot seat. This happens a lot of times. Happened in Buffalo when they drafted Manuel out of Florida State. This happens a lot. So I'm not terribly surprised that they made the trade. And you know what? Most importantly, if in your heart of hearts, you as a general manager or an evaluator or as a scouter or as a head coach or whatever, if you really believe Trubisky is your guy, then you go up and trade and get him. And I say this for two reasons. One, Chicago's never had a good quarterback. I mean, I'll seriously, I'll sit here and you guys tell me the last time they've had a Pro Bowl level quarterback. Hasn't happened. You know what? The freaking Browns have had a Pro Bowl quarterback before the okay? So the other thing you have to keep in mind here, the Bears realize, look, if we don't have a quarterback, we have Stafford, we have Rodgers, and then somehow we have two quarterbacks who are both better than the quarterback we have in Minnesota than we have in Chicago. So the Bears said, we have no choice. It's an arms race. We have to keep up with the arms race. We have to get a quarterback. So really, for me, I wasn't really that surprised when they traded up and got him.
Here was Pace's explanation on the trade. If we want to be great, you just can't sit on your hands. There are times when you've got to be aggressive. I just don't want to be average around here. I want to be great. And these are moves you have to make. So, yeah, sure. I agree with him in that sense. And if he's your guy, if he's the best you've ever seen, and you know, these GMs, they know what they're seeing. These scouts, they know what they're seeing. So if this is like the best you've ever seen, okay, go up and get him. The problem is well, nobody really thought that. And that's why this move was looked at so down upon.
That's really fair, Adrian. And I think the other thing that is a fair argument is if you had to really believe that the Niners were going to take him. I mean, you really had to believe that. Or you really had to believe that a team like the Bills or the Chiefs or the Browns.
Who obviously was the team that wanted Trubisky. And that was the team that, you know, the Bears were trying to leapfrog.
Right. So if you really believe that the Niners had someone else on the hook, I get it. And I mean, honestly, here's the thing. It's easy for everyone to say, haha, you got bluffed and no one else was actually offering. But you know what? If I was Pace there and I said, look, there might be another team on the other line of this call with the Niners who is moving up, I don't have a choice. I got to go up and get them. So I get it.
Yeah, I mean, hindsight is relevant here because when they made the move, we had that video go viral on YouTube, and we had the Bears fan that was like, "It's this genius." We had a Bears fan that we encountered at the draft that absolutely loved the pick. He loved that they traded up and got Mitchell Trubisky. He thought he was the guy. He was a god, and he loved it. And everybody made fun of this guy on our video. And we got a bunch of likes. We got like 8,000 views on it. And now it's looking like, well, this guy, hey, maybe he knew something. Maybe he did. All right, so some of the other things about Trubisky that I like. All right, so DeShone Kizer, what we're seeing from him is like one read and get the ball out. Seeing a lot of that with Trubisky too, but I'm also seeing him go through his progressions more than some of the other rookie quarterbacks. And I like seeing that already.
Well, I mean, Adrian, this was kind of my thing when we were talking months ago now, going into the draft. When you asked me, what do you like differences? And I said, realistically, Watson's only ever been a half the field read and then run. Not saying that Trubisky has always been, hey, I'm going to read all 5 options here and then I'm going to make a decision. But Mitchell has at least shown a little bit more of an ability to read the full field. It's just in a much smaller sample size in 1 year. So I didn't love – I don't want to make this sound. You even can go back and rewatch all the videos that me and Adrian did. I never thought that either of these guys was elite-level talent. I never thought either of these guys was, hey, a definite first-round pick. But in the NFL, it's a supply and demand business when it comes to quarterbacks. Joe Flacco is a great example of that. He got paid the highest-paid contract after he won the Super Bowl because he was up. And it happened again with Stafford. He got paid a ton of money. And then when he comes to the draft, it just becomes simple. Do you have a quarterback? No. Well, then someone's going to overpay for him. Does anyone really think Pat Mahomes was worth everything the Chiefs traded up for? No. What about Watson? No. So realistically, I get why that the Bears ended up drafting here in Mitchell Trubisky. I do think he's the best quarterback. I think he's the most pro-ready. He's still going to take some time to develop, though. I don't think he's ready to start.
Yeah. I got a couple notes, so I got a piece of paper here because I watched his the last 2 preseason games. So I'll just kind of read off, All right, so There was a beautiful touchdown throw that he had in his third game. Beautiful trajectory to a kid named Gentry, and that turned into a touchdown. And there was another play where perfect the way he maneuvered in the pocket, and he stepped up in it, and he threw a dart to Victor Cruz. Victor Cruz dropped the football. But this was another throw that I noticed. There were also a couple times where I talked about the one look and throw it, right? Well, there were a couple times where he did that and he threw it into double coverage, and that's not what you want to do. So he's still learning. He's getting there. Now, the question I have for you is this. How much stock should we put into what we're seeing, considering it's in the second half of preseason games? We're not seeing this with starters.
Not much, Adrian, honestly. And I know it's crazy for me to kind of say all this because realistically, none of these guys are going to be starters, at least early. Maybe develop into it, after a couple weeks, but none of them are starters yet. And I think that's the right thing to do. One thing I thought was interesting here, okay, the Bears came out and they said, hey, Trubisky's going to get the start, but Glennon's not going to play and Sanchez isn't going to play. That should tell you that Sanchez is going in as the number 2 quarterback on the roster because the Bears are saying we don't want to risk him getting injured. So to me, the Bears are saying, yeah, we obviously understand that Trubisky is the future, but he's not the immediate. Now, the other thing to keep in mind here, Kaiser and Mahomes are both in the same spot. They're going to start week 4 of the preseason. The problem with all of this is none of those guys, none of those teams' offensive line, full units is going to start. None of those teams' full receiving cores are going to start. So he's going to be playing with backups. So I always worry a little about injury here with these guys.
That's a point you bring up there. All right, so let's get on to some Mike Glennon talk now. And another reason why the trade was looked so down upon was, well, you signed this guy, 3 years, $45 million. So why are you going out signing Mike Glennon and then trade all the way up, trade one spot up, trade 3 picks to get Mitch Trubisky? So why do you sign Glennon?
You sign Glennon to take the hit so Mitch Trubisky doesn't have to his first year. Because when we looking at the line of the Bears, Josh Sutton is a very good guard. Cody Whitehair was as close to a surefire thing when he came out of the draft from Kansas State. Very similar to how we looked at Lamp coming out. We knew that this guy was going to be a stud, and Whitehair has been a stud center. Kyle Long, he's had a little bit of a regression there at guard, but he's still a good starting guard in the NFL. And then the tackles is awful. Really,
tackles are
really bad tackles. So realistically, why did you pay Glennon all that money? So he can take the hits. So Trubisky doesn't have to take a full season of getting pummeled into like a pulp. That's why you paid Glennon. And realistically, with the way the Bears contract is structured with the Glennon deal, if they move on from Glennon next season, it doesn't really cost them that much.
Yeah. And I'll say this about Mike Glennon. I don't think he's terrible. I would take him over Jay Cutler. How about that statement?
I would disagree with you, but I would say this. Glennon is one of the better backup quarterbacks in the NFL. I think that's really what he is. Because I think guys like I would take Kaepernick over him, honestly. But I mean, if you look at guys like Moore, if you look at guys like Nick Foles, maybe even AJ McCarron, depending on how you really are in on him, honestly, I would take Glennon as a backup quarterback over these guys. But again, quarterback is a supply and demand game. He was a free agent. The Bears needed one. They paid him big money. That's just simply as simple as it is, guys. You can make it say, oh, well, he's not worth that money. No, he's not. But you know what? Mark Sanchez wasn't going to walk out and be your starting quarterback game 1. And if you're smart, you're not going to give Trubisky the David card treatment and let him trot out there and get his head knocked in for 16 weeks, and then he's never right again.
You know what this is, right? This is Matt Flynn all over again. Drafted Russell Wilson, but the difference here, Wilson started right from the beginning. Now, the question here now is, all right, are they doing the right thing by sitting him a year? Because this is the old school theory. And obviously they have an old school coach with John Fox. In recent years, like the last 5 years, they've been trotting the rookies out there. The rookie seasons, we're seeing some pretty good play from the rookies. But you're talking about a kid that played 1 year at North Carolina. I think a year under Glennon, I think waiting that year, I think is a good thing.
the only quarterback of the rookies that I think realistically is going to sit a whole year is Mahomes. I don't think any of the other guys are going to sit. I think Kaiser's probably only going to sit 4 or 5 games. I think that realistically, Trubisky, he'll probably sit 5 to 8. And I think those are all appropriate. I mean, I just think it's very foolish for fans to sit there and be like, we want Trubisky. Well, you know what? Even if Trubisky comes out here, what's that going to do? It's not going to make you a wild card team. You're sure as hell not going to win the division. So why would you even want him to bring him out here? Let him continue to develop. Let him slowly work himself in when he's ready, and let him get ready and move in when the offensive line's ready to go and ready to protect him. It's not a very good offense here in Chicago. So to me, I don't think there's a big need to rush him in there.
Yeah. All right. So we'll quickly go position by position because I know we spent a lot of time at quarterback, but that's what the Bears fans want to talk about. They want to talk about Mitchell Trubisky. They know the team's bad. They know they're not going to be that good this year. But somebody that is really good for them, Jordan Howard at running back.
Jordan Howard's very, very good. I'm a big Jordan Howard fan. I actually had the 10 pick in my 14-team league, fantasy league the other night. I took Jordan Howard there, PPR. I think Jordan Howard, he's really going to be the only fantasy option here in Chicago. I think everything else is just pretty bad. I like Jordan Howard, though. I think ultimately it's not a stretch to see him be one of the highest touches in the NFL next season. Realistically, he came on after Jeremy Langford, had a bummed up ankle, and he ran away with the job. I don't think there's any question in my mind that Jordan Howard is a stud running back in the future of the NFL.
I have him at number 10 right now in my running back rankings, but that's like, you remember how we talked about the last show with Michael Thomas and not knowing where to put him? That's how I felt with Howard. So I put him at 10. It's kind of like a safe thing, but I really like him.
Fair enough. I think that's fair.
Yeah. All right. Receivers. Is Kevin White a bust? I shouldn't say bust because he's been hurt his first 2 years, but is he finally going to show something?
I have a hard time thinking it. Honestly, I do. I mean, here's the thing. I don't even think he's a bust. And I say that because I never thought he was going to be good in the first place.
There you go.
I mean, I was very anti-Kevin White from the get-go. Now, the thing is Kevin White's only production is 1 year at West Virginia in an air raid offense that throws the ball all over the field where everyone's numbers are inflated, and then one really good year where he was an All-American at a junior college. Junior college football is still very good, so I want to make this clear. I'm not diminishing it. Being an All-American in junior college is very good. There's a lot of guys in the NFL who were junior college players. But honestly, I can't get excited about numbers at an offense that's going to throw the ball 70% of the time coming out of West Virginia. Yes, he's only played 4 games in the NFL, but it's hard for me to really think, hey, this guy is going to be a stud receiver there in Chicago.
Yeah, and he's going to get every opportunity because Cam Meredith just went down, and then who do they really have as weapons? All right, so the topic I want to talk about real quick because we talked about the D2 guys, and I forgot to talk about this earlier. So the Bears had 5 draft picks. Them were non-FBS guys. So you had Adam Sheehan going in the second round, tight end from Ashland. You got Tariq Cohen, the human joystick, even though he doesn't like that nickname. He'd rather be called chicken salad. And then you got Jordan Morgan. From Kutztown. Now, this is an interesting story because he went to Michigan to play basketball. He left Michigan. He walked on at Kutztown. And then he became an All-American tackle for them. Well, whatever All-American is for the D2 level. And he got drafted in the 5th round. So that's a crazy story. So I have a question for you because you're the draft expert. These D2 guys, does it take them longer? Like, is there a bigger learning curve?
I think that's fair. Now, here's the one thing we need to talk about with Division II guys. Tyreek Hill's a great guy. He was a D2 guy on the surface.
Yeah.
Because he got kicked out of a D1 school and then went to a D2 school for 1 year and then went to the NFL. So in general, when we talk about, this guy's a D2, he's a D3, he's an NAIA guy. He might be on the surface, but where did he first go to school? There's a lot of guys that this happens to, and they bump down, they play a year, and they move on. Also, I want to talk about something really quick that really irks me in sports. You can't decide what your nickname is. Other people decide your nickname, okay? If you're the human joystick, you're the human joystick. if you're the Slim Reaper, you're the Slim Reaper. You're not Kevin Durant. I don't care what you say. If someone gives you a nickname, that's your nickname. Sorry, I get that quick little rant in there. But
That's okay. But see, I don't like the nickname because that's Dante Hall's nickname.
it is a little reused. I'll agree with you there. Okay. Because, see, I call Dante Hall the X Factor because that was his big thing.
That's a good rebuttal.
Now, here's the thing. When you look at Adam,
dude, I kind of like.
go ahead.
I don't know what chicken salad means, but that sounds pretty badass.
I mean, I don't know. I just think food analogies makes me think that you're an offensive lineman.
Well, he's chicken salad. It's healthy.
Sure. I mean, here's the thing. All right, let's hop back to the D2 conversation. The Adam Shaheen pick, he is enormous. He was the biggest tight end drafted this year, coming out of a D2 school in Ohio. So Adam Shaheen here, I think he was drafted 34th overall, I want to say is where he was drafted, 35th in there. One of the highest Division II players ever drafted. So kudos to him. But what's interesting is he's roughly the same size as an offensive tackle in the NFL, and yet the thing he struggles with is blocking. So for him, going back to your question, Adrian, yeah, he probably does need a little more development. Now, when we look more and when they who was the tackle they drafted out of Kutztown again, Adrian? Forgive me, I forgot it.
Jordan Morgan.
Jordan Morgan, okay. So Jordan Morgan's situation, as you mentioned, Adrian, he was a guy who was a basketball guy, then walked on to a D2 school, and now he's in the NFL. Okay, I understand. Everyone's like, ooh, there's a lot of risk there. There's a lot of curiosity. Maybe he's not a great fit. They drafted him in the 5th round. Everyone in the 5th round you could say that about for. There's a reason they're drafted in the 5th round. So I have no problem with where they drafted him here. I think the concern that a lot of Bears fans on the surface they might say is, so you're telling me that in our draft, our 1st round pick, we traded up for a guy that we probably could have gotten at 3, and then the 2nd round we drafted a guy who was a Division II player. On the surface, I can understand right there why Bears fans are probably a little worried and like, man, this is not a good draft. I mean, look. Everyone can say whatever they want, but until we talk about it 365 days removed, no one really knows. So Adam Shaheen, he's a project guy. He's not going to be a great player next year, realistically. Just accept that. Trubisky, he's probably not going to be a good player at least for 8 weeks of the season, and even if that. So it's going to be a process in Chicago, but again, this is exactly why I'm not surprised that Pace did what he did in the draft. He's trying to buy himself a little more time. It's a smart move for his career. I understand it. But as a Bear fan, it's going to be a while before you're good again.
Yeah, he's trying to set his pace, That's what he's doing. All right, let's move on to the defensive line. Let's move on to the defense. What do you think about the D-line?
Well, when you look at the D-line here, okay, so they're a 3-4 defense there in Chicago. Made that move a couple years ago. And in Chicago, they have a pretty good nose tackle there in Eddie Goldman, okay? Now, he's 23 years old, former Florida State guy. And the nice thing about him, usually when you're a nose tackle in the NFL, you're pretty much just asked, hey, take up blocks, let our linebackers run free, and we'll make our outside linebackers make all the splash plays, the sacks, tackle for losses, etc. However, in 17 games, Eddie Goldman has 7 sacks. So as a nose tackle, that's pretty damn good, especially at a young age. So I like that.
That's like what – dude, I have him as my number 2 ranked nose tackle behind Brandon Williams. I think Eddie Goldman's very good. Yeah, he might be the player on that defense. I'm trying. Who else is on that defense?
Well, I mean, here's the thing. Before I wouldn't have him that high. I wouldn't have him as a top 5 nose tackle, and I say that because he's only played 17 games in the NFL, and that's not enough of a body.
Not a lot of good per se.
Yeah, fair enough.
So that's part of it.
Yeah. Now, when you look on the edges there, you have Willie Young, and Floyd. Now, Willie Young is coming off his 2nd most sacks of his career with a 7.5 sack season, which is good, but realistically, he's never going to be more than that. However, if he's getting 7 sacks, I'm okay with that as a starting outside linebacker in a 3-4 system. I'm good with that. Now, Floyd was a guy they drafted in the 1st round out of Georgia last year, I believe, and he came off of 7.5 sacks, and more impressive, only in 12 games. So he was bringing the noise, and realistically, it's not like on the opposite side he's playing with a Joey Bosa where he's getting one-on-one matchups every time. Now, I don't think the NFL was fully prepared for him, But at the same time, 7.5 sacks in 12 games, it's a damn good average. So on the edges there, pretty darn good. Linebacker situation, pretty good. I mean, this is one of the more underrated linebackers they have there in the NFL.
Yeah, I lied. Eddie Goldman's not their best player on defense. Their best player on defense is Terrell Freeman. Freeman is probably the most underrated linebacker in the entire league. And Pernell McPhee is one of the most underrated 3-4 outside linebackers in the league because he's not. Well, you should know all about him. He played for the Ravens.
Former Raven, yep. And the Bears gave him a fat contract, and the Ravens said, "Hey, good luck there in Chicago."
Yeah. But he's what do you think of McPhee? I think he's a good player.
I think McPhee's a fine rotational guy. I'm not a huge fan of him, and maybe I'm just
not as big.
Maybe I'm letting my bias show, here a little bit. I don't think he's great. I think when he gets more than 5 sacks in a season, that's really something special. I don't think he was that great. I don't think he was worth the contract the Bears gave him. But realistically, I mean, it's really him and Willie Young fighting out one outside linebacker spot because it looks like, again, in the small window we've seen, Floyd looks like he's the real deal as one of the outside linebackers.
I think Floyd is a stud. I think he's going to be a stud. McPhee, kind of, all right, I'll throw you the Brandon Graham kind of thing because I think he's better, more run defense, not going to get after the quarterback as much. So a little bit similar. Agree there a little bit? All right. That's fair. That wasn't like an enthusiastic. That's fair, though.
Yeah. But inside linebackers, I do like the Danny Trevathan as another inside linebacker too. So
and Terrell Freeman is a stud muffin.
Yep, good inside linebackers there in Chicago. Not elite, but very, very solid.
Let's get to the secondary. So Prince Amukamara, they signed him during the offseason. They still have Kyle Fuller on the roster. He was a potential trade target for the Eagles. A lot of people in Philadelphia wanted to trade for him. I'm glad that they didn't. So your thoughts on the secondary?
Prince is one of those guys that is slowly slept on. I think Prince is a solid starting corner in the NFL. I think he's right there in the mix with like a Brandon Carr kind of guy as solid starter. Elite, no, but probably in the top 25, I think is a fair way to kind of look at him. So that's okay there. Kyle Fuller hasn't really fully come on to being a stud corner. He's not terrible, but he hasn't really shown anything that really makes you confident that he's going to be worth re-signing when his contract comes up. And then they do have Callahan, who's above average nickel, which is a pretty nice thing to have there in Chicago because guess what? The Lions, and then the Packers, they're going to go 11 personnel a lot of the time. So you're going to have 3 receivers on the field. So you need a good nickel, and Chicago has a pretty good one there.
Yeah. Well, their safety situation, you're looking at Quentin Demps. Well, Adrian Amos is good. And Eddie Jackson, the rookie there. So, I wanted to look up Amukamara. So you're pretty much spot on. I got him at 27.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think he's a okay number 2. I wouldn't want him as a corner 1, but as a 2, I'd be okay with it. I think where do you have Brandon Carr? Because he's another one I think is in that mix.
Yeah, see, I'm not a Brandon Carr guy. Brandon Carr's down for me.
What about Mo Claiborne?
I'll tell you who I have like in the mix there. All right. I got Morris Claiborne at 26. Amukamara 27, Terrence Newman. I got Ronald Darby up there, Kevin Johnson, Trey Waynes, Marshawn Lattimore.
Okay, so you're adding a rookie in there. Okay, that's fair enough.
Yeah, I normally don't put rookie corners that high, but that's how high I am on Lattimore. So, all right. Anyway, we're driving from topic. All right, moving on to underrated, overrated, and hot seat. We know who's on the hot seat. It's boiling hot. Ryan Pace. He's trying to set the pace, but his pace might be I fucked up. Just go.
Yeah, it's not good. Honestly, everyone there in management for Chicago is on the hot seat. I think honestly, it's like watching the Titanic go down at this point. You can put your blinkers on, you can throw all the life vests out you want, but it's going down. I don't think it's going to matter much. So I think everyone there, unfortunately, is going to be on the go. And realistically, I never thought I'd say this, but I was talking with my buddy, and traditionally you have about 8 teams, 6 to 10 teams on average is the average number of teams who change head coaches in the NFL. Jeff Fisher might get a head coaching job again. And honestly, a team like Chicago with nothing on the up and up, I can
Oh,
totally see them hiring Jeff Fisher. For some
oh,
reason, I could see them saying, oh, he played here in Chicago. He'd be a homer pick. Let's sign him. I just could totally see that happening.
oh. That would be awful. That would be an all-time low in hiring.
I
That
mean,
would.
here's the thing. Like, as a high school coach myself, I've had some time to work with some really good coaches and some guys I'm not as big of a fan of, and that happens. You work anywhere you work, you're going to feel that way. But everything I've read from some people I knew who coached under Fisher in the Rams organization and in the Titans organization loved him. They've all said nothing but positive things about him. However, his nickname of 7-9 does fit. However, if you're the Bears and you're currently 3-13, 7-9 might sound pretty attractive to you.
Well, even when he was at Tennessee, I mean, like it. It took 5 years worth of 8-8 until they finally made that jump and they went to the Super Bowl, and then they were great for a couple years, and
And then that
that's
Peyton
what.
Manning guy came into their division and whipped their ass forever. So, I mean, I don't love Jeff Fisher, but at the same time, I could also understand if the Bears look, their history has shown they like to go with veteran coaches.
Yeah, John Fox. There you go.
So I'm just
God.
saying Fisher would make
Uh,
sense.
uh,
Or
uh,
or the other one would
yeah, go
be
ahead.
and I'm gonna as I say this, I think the entire city of Chicago will probably jump at the same time in excitement. Would be John Gruden, which would be awesome because I would love to see him back on the sidelines. But at the same time, I wouldn't because I love him on ESPN.
I thought you were going to say Rex Ryan for a second, just because of Buddy.
No,
But
I I pray that Rex Ryan and Rob Ryan never get hired in Chicago, and I say that because no matter what they do, they will always be compared to their father, and that's so unfair.
yeah. All right. I'll just throw Kevin White's name on the hot seat. That's kind of obvious. All
Yeah.
right. Who's underrated in Chicago?
Underrated. I'm going to go with Eddie Goldman and Floyd. I mean, these are two young guys, yes, but realistically, both of their uprise is very high. I think both of these guys can become stars in the NFL and can eventually become elite in what they do. So Chicago does have some hope there in two really important positions in your 3-4, in your nose tackle and your outside rush man.
Yeah. I'm really high on Terrell Freeman. That's my underrated guy. Let me see if I can pull up. He might. I think I have him top 5 inside linebacker. To be honest, I don't remember. Looking, looking, looking. He is number 3. I put him at 3. That's high. So I went Kuechly, Wagner, Freeman, C.J. Mosley, Navarro Bowman. That's my top 5.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's fair. Oh, no arguments here. I'm okay with that.
Okay. See that's fair right there. That was a little bit more emphatic, so I feel better about that one. Who's on the Who's your fantasy guy?
There's only one person here. There's only one guy who's fantasy relevant here, and that's Jordan Howard. No one else is fantasy relevant. I'm not touching any of the receivers after Cameron Meredith went down. I can't trust any of the tight ends. Zach Miller's never been a guy who had more than 45 receptions, so he's not fantasy relevant. There's obviously nothing there. The defense isn't even good enough for me to say, oh, we'll draft the defense. It's only Jordan Howard, and there's nothing else in Chicago. No one else from the Bears should be drafted in your leagues.
So there it is. Draft Mitchell
Sorry about that, guys. I accidentally hit the X window, so I completely closed it early. But anyway, guys, that was our wrap-up we have on the Chicago Bears. I think everyone can agree realistically this isn't going to be a team who's going to make the playoffs this year. I have them at 3-13. Adrian's a little higher on them. But realistically, this is going to be a team drafting in the early part of the draft next season. Chicago, the news for you guys is just sit and wait. Let Trubisky develop. Don't rush it. Don't put him on the field just to get hit around and let him throw to really bad receivers because realistically, none of those receivers are probably going to be on the Bears next season anyway. So just relax, let the season go, and understand it's going to be draft season for you soon enough. Good luck this year, Chicago.